Every lesson is a lyric in the universal song. Oh, the lessons of the journey, I weave them in my song.
Hello, and welcome to Lessons of the Journey, where we discuss the stuff we actually needed to learn in school with Coach Nicole and Coach Jen. Thanks for spending some time with us today. We are on our second episode of the Conflict Code.
Today, we are going to decode the science and lessons behind human tension and uncover the tools to navigate it with more clarity, compassion, and confidence. In today's episode, we're going to be diving deep into one of the most powerful and often invisible forces driving how we argue, connect, and disconnect in our relationships: attachment styles and conflict patterns. Today, you're going to learn how some people chase conflict in search of closeness, others run from it to protect themselves, and a rare few can hold steady ground, offering connection and boundaries at the same time. Oh, I want that to be me. We'll also break down the 7 conflict patterns and how they can feel so familiar, yet so destructive. If you've ever found yourself asking, why do I keep having the same fight over and over again? This episode is for you. So let's start with our agreed upon definition of conflict. Jen, you're our expert on definitions. What do you got for us?
Okay, when we use it as a verb, it is to come into collision or disagreement, to be contradictory or at variance or in opposition, to clash, also to fight or contend or literally do battle. That is conflict. When it's a noun, it's a fight, a battle, a prolonged struggle or strife. I think that that's maybe what everybody considers conflict. Can we all agree on that?
I can definitely agree with that. I think that's where we're going. So in our first episode, we talked about some of the positives of conflict. Today, we're going to get into attachment styles, but I want to talk a little bit about what they are before we dive into them. So they came from the attachment theory, which was developed from the work of Bowlby and Ainsworth. Attachment styles are basically typically formed in early childhood and influence how we relate to others. These are our own personal conflict patterns. Later, we're going to discuss relationship patterns, including 2 individuals. So you have to put 2 people together to have that conflict. But understanding yourself and how you show up, I think, is really important. And these are how you may show up.
Oh my gosh. I was old when I learned these. So if you are younger than old, how necessary this would have been to actually learn in school. This is such an important thing. When I learned about myself in attachment theory, I went, oh my God, that explains so much of my entire life. I wish I would have known this back then. Like, this is necessary stuff.
I agree with you 100%. And I never even knew the term attachment styles until a year ago. And I am 54 years old. And I read this and I go, oh my gosh, why did nobody explain this to me? Knowing how you show up in a conflict is so enlightening. So I'm excited to go through this. And if you've never heard of attachment styles, this will change your world completely.
Listen up.
We're here for you. We got you. And I am learning. I want to clarify, I am no expert on these at all. I literally learned about them a year ago. But I've heard them mentioned and never had them clearly defined for me. So I love that we're diving into these because I feel like I'm going to come out of this knowing better too.
Well, and our job here, Nicole, is to create awareness. If somebody's here listening and they're like, I don't know what this is. If this can bring an awareness to something inside of them that they can then apply to their lives or at least learn more about in a way that helps and benefits, that's what we're here for. So thank you.
Agreed.
Let's get into it.
So first of all, just to clarify, mixing the attachment styles is common. Okay. We are real life personalities. We're complex. Many people fall somewhere between the classical categories. So there's going to be 4 categories we're going to be talking about: secure, anxious, avoidant, and fearful avoidant. It does not mean you're going to be in one box. You're complex. So for example, someone actually may be generally secure, but become anxious with a partner who is emotionally inconsistent. Again, we put 2 people together and all hell breaks. Understanding kind of where we fall helps. At least for me, it did. Research shows that people with secure attachment are more likely to approach conflict with empathy and problem solving, while those with avoidant or anxious styles may shut down or escalate it. Cullenser and Shaver, 2007. When I look at this, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm an escalator. Okay, yeah. I want to be that secure attachment person. That's the goal, of course, but not always there. Ainsworth's strange situation study revealed that by age one, you guys, many children already show clear patterns of emotional regulation, which mirror adult attachment styles later in life.
My poor children.
Probably was going to like nature, nurture, but I look at this and I go, this is really interesting. And yet the effects of trauma, we'll talk about some of those things and the effects of your caregiving when you're younger. But this is really interesting that by age one, we already have sort of those mirrored adult attachment styles.
It's so interesting because, as you were saying about the research where the secure attachment shows up more with empathy and problem solving, as an adult, I think, well, obviously that's what we want to mirror for our children. That's how somebody would become secure, is if they're seeing something like that modeled over and over and over. And gosh, do I know any of those people? I've slowly worked my way that way, but it's taken a lot of effort. When I learned about these, I was like, oh, I'm avoidant attachment. Absolutely, 100%. It was me to a T. And I went, oh, that's interesting. Had something else been modeled, I would have been shown that this is the way that it was. My parents didn't know. We don't know what we're doing when we're doing it. That's why the kids will end up in therapy later in life, but not for the reasons I ever was. To reiterate, our attachment style, it's dynamic. Even though your early childhood shapes your initial style, it can definitely evolve based on your life experiences. Those would include things like therapy or any personal growth that you've gone through, whether you've been in healthy or toxic relationships, if you've experienced trauma, big T, little t, or any type of loss that it affected you. All of these things affect our attachment styles. That's why it's dynamic, right? We are, as Nicole stated, we are ever evolving. You're not going to be fixed in it. The example is earned security. So it's when somebody with an insecure style moves toward a secure attachment. And that's really through healing. That's through the awareness that we create as we're learning about this and applying it to our own lives. Now, there's definitely situational variability. So you very well could have different attachment responses in different contexts, depending upon what is happening. It could be different with romantic partners. You might be anxious. You could be any one of these. With friends, you may be secure. I can tell you that I show up very secure with my friends because I feel accepted and whole just as I am. At work, you might show avoidant traits where you show different traits with a romantic partner or friends. It's situationally variable. I'll give you an example of a mixed style in action, how it might look in your life. Not that I can say that it's exactly me, but we're drawing from real life experience here. So imagine someone, could be Coach Jen, who gets super anxious when their partner pulls away emotionally. That would be an anxious trait. But then maybe they withdraw completely or avoid the conversation. That's avoidance. But deep down inside, they want intimacy and love. So there's this secure need that's underneath it. We don't know how to reach that. Our conflict style doesn't show up that way. Very hard is it to be like, hi, I'm really just a teddy bear. I just need a hug and I just need you to tell me that I'm pretty and pet me. Okay, don't reduce me to that, but also that. And
I might yell it at you.
It's a vulnerable thing. So instead of that, what maybe was modeled was, I'm going to treat you this way because you're not giving me what I need, even though I didn't tell you what I needed. So all of those different things can show up in a mixed style, all in one person's life, all at the same time.
And how many times have you been asked, what do you need? And you're like, if I knew what I needed, I would do it and then I'd be good. Obviously, I'm a female, so I don't have the answer. Here's the book on men, and it's like as big as my folder. And then the book on women is like 3 feet high. Good luck figuring out all the answers. I don't even know. The bottom line is that attachment styles are best seen as fluid spectrums. They're not rigid boxes. You can have a primary style, and you probably will feel a relation to one of these, but your behavior may shift based on your relationship dynamics, your emotional state, I would say menopause, your personal growth. These are all things that can affect the style you're showing up as. Let's talk first about secure attachment. This is basically the goal generally, having a secure attachment style. So your view, we'll always talk about the view first. You have a positive, stable view of yourself. So your view stays positive. It doesn't fluctuate, you also have a positive, stable view of others. Okay. You see yourself as an equal partner. You do not devalue yourself or think of yourself as higher. Some of the traits: trusting, you set and you respect boundaries. You are emotionally open, comfortable with intimacy, and comfortable with independence. So behaviors communicates your needs clearly. You also support your partner and you handle conflict constructively. So how do we identify someone like this? They can be close without being clingy, comfortable depending on others, and having others depend on them. That was the one that was like, oh, a knife in the heart. I'm going to repeat that. Comfortable depending on others and having others depend on them. I think most of us are comfortable having others depend on us, but a lot of us are not comfortable depending on others. I think, and I can only speak to women, I think our society really has perpetuated that. Next way to identify: able to self-regulate emotions, relies on self and others to manage distress. Again, we rely on ourselves to manage our distress and others that can help us. It's letting others in, and they welcome diverse perspectives. Secure attachment style. What do you think, Jen?
Well, again, the goal. And as you're going through these, I go, yeah. These are all things that I'm working on. And it's also very clear to me as you're going through this why I feel more secure with my girlfriends than I do in any other situational relationship. It's the level of trust, the ability to trust maybe your close group of women who have helped you before, who have a consistent way of showing up for you, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. That, you just feel more emotionally safe with your friend group than you do with other people who maybe you put the walls up. It's difficult to let other people in. And that's based on your experience. We are the way that we are based on all of the things that happened in your life. What were the adults in your life showing you? Were they able to help you co-regulate your emotions and feelings? That's how you gain trust from others. If they're pushing away your feelings or how you're showing up, then you're conditioned to think that there's something wrong with you. So you develop these other styles to cope with that. And that's to keep you safe. That's the how am I going to survive in this moment? And yes, my entire life is moving towards secure attachment. It's a hell of a lot of work if it wasn't ever modeled for you and shown that this is a safe way to be. That's a key word in there.
And I want to add to that because it's interesting that you find this with your friends, and I find this in my relationship as the only place I can really feel this. Yet I don't show up this way in conflict in that relationship, even though I do feel secure and I know all of these things are true. But I know within myself, I'm still working toward this. But that's the only relationship I think that I feel could be here. Of course, I know once I can get that there, then everything else comes together as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was just having this conversation with Paul, my kid's dad. We're doing really well right now, and we weren't always. This was never modeled in my parents. I never saw what I knew to be the secure attachment in an adult relationship. My parents were married forever, and that's not necessarily a reason that they would have been secure with each other. So how were these things modeled? In my life, I was not able to see that in a male-female relationship, what was supposed to be considered an intimate marriage, family situation. It wasn't modeled for me. I never saw that worked. So I, took these agreements unto myself. Nobody told me to make them based on how I grew up, what was going on in my life. And I decided that, that type of relationship, that's not where you're secure. It's these other types of relationships that I saw modeled where that's secure. And that's what I was seeking out. As we as a couple are working toward being our best possible selves with each other, this is what we're working toward. We're doing a lot of the Gottman stuff. They talk a lot about this, being able to move toward this together. You can't make the changes if you're not aware. So now that we're all aware, this is what we're moving toward. I'm starting to understand that there is safety in that. I find it really interesting that in your marriage, that's the safest place for you, where I'm moving into that portion of my relationship, but I just never knew how to do that before.
Yeah, I really related to the earned security because I feel like my relationship has actually given me that earned security. And yet I will say, even though I had a good, and it was a male-male relationship that was my model, I think adults showing love doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Seeing how adults love each other. And yet I also had a lot of screwed up adult relationships as examples. I knew what it was, but then did I have it all? And my goal is to have it all.
Isn't everybody? That's interesting too. Speaking to the screwed up part, we'll move right into the anxious attachment, also known as a preoccupied attachment. The view here is negative, an insecure view of themselves, but, big but, a positive or stable view of others. So I'm all screwed up, but other people seem to have it all together. And that really creates a lot of anxiety inside of me. The traits that one might exhibit would be that they crave closeness because other people can provide that stability. They fear abandonment. That's a lot of anxiety. And they are often very overly sensitive to relationship cues. Anybody who shows a little bit of kindness or compassion, you're like, I'm right there. They love me. And so I need that person in my life. And I'm really going to like octopus to the face because I become anxious if I don't have that, because I'm relying on the stability of others to help me. That's this anxious attachment. So how would you identify this? Somebody might worry a lot about their partner's feelings or partner's commitment. Did I do something? Are you going to stay? Are you going to leave me? They react strongly to perceived slights or distance, emotional up and downs. You're pulling away. Did I do something? How come you didn't call me back? I texted you 3 times. Can you hear the anxiety in my voice? And leading right into that, these types of folks may over communicate when they're stressed. So vomit of the mouth. Just, and this is how I was feeling. This is what I need from you. And that gets really a lot for the person on the other side. These people tend to be the pursuer, the one going after the relationship. And sometimes for a different attachment style, that might be off-putting.
So that's me. It's really interesting because when I read this and I was like, okay, I cannot tell you how many times I've been in an argument with Tim and I'm like, my concern is you're going to leave me. And he's like, it's been 33 years. I'm not going anywhere.
Where am I going?
Haven't I proven? You've proven. But in my mind, I'm still, my biggest fear is that he will leave me. And how odd is that? 33 years later, still one of my biggest concerns. And yet I can tell you in my mind, I know that's not going to happen. I know he is fully committed into our relationship. And I can also understand when he looks at me like, are you nuts? Like 33 years, I'm going nowhere. And yet in my heart, I know the things I went through as a child. And I go, yeah, but everyone leaves. That's just what happens.
That's cellular. That's inside of you. Well, that's a lot of work to address it. And thank you for sharing that. That's a very vulnerable statement, yet so necessary to be aware of.
Well, don't forget, I'm an oversharer.
Yes. That's what an anxious attachment style is.
I over communicate when stressed. Not that I'm stressed right in this moment, but I'm like, overshare.
Well, I'm an oversharer too. I identify with the one we're going to talk about next, as we'll get into that. There are pieces, as we mentioned before, this is dynamic. There are probably pieces of all of us in all of these. Yeah, let's get right into avoidance.
Okay, you nailed me. Now I nail you. Avoidant or dismissive attachment. So view, positive, unstable view of self, negative, insecure view of others.
Check.
She's like, oh no. Traits. So values independence, sets rigid boundaries, like boundaries that put walls up. Yeah.
Oh, that's a regular conversation in this house.
So not the healthy boundaries, the rigid boundaries that might be a little too extreme. Emotionally distant and suppresses feelings. So behaviors, keeps partner at arm's length, avoids deep emotional intimacy, Okay, how to identify struggles with vulnerability. You're saying you relate to avoidant attachment. I haven't gotten through all the things, but when we're talking about struggles with vulnerability, if we just tell everything, then we don't have to be vulnerable. Even though it seems like we're vulnerable.
Yep.
Yeah, I can relate to that part.
This is just, it's punching me in the gut. Every word out of your mouth. No, really, when I learned this, I learned it about 2 years ago, and I went, well, holy shit, no wonder every relationship's ever been. I know where it comes from. I do the work. It was just really interesting to be like, oh, it's already out there. The mind people already knew this.
But why didn't we get told?
Why didn't we get told? Yeah.
I mean, let's be raised with this. So a couple other ways to how to identify the avoidant dismissive attachment: can seem cold or detached, and can elevate self above partner. Interesting.
Righteous indignation. That's that the Gottmans call it. I'm not an expert on this at all.
That word I know. Righteous
indignation. Well, here's where our independence is so important. And because of that, look how amazing I am. I got myself where I am, and everything that keeps me safe is right. If you're going to challenge that, then that can't be right. I got myself here, and I don't know what you did, but whatever. And I need to keep myself safe. Not that I think I'm better. I really want to be clear in the elevate self above partner. It's not that I'm better than you.
It's not an ego thing.
It's not that at all. It's a safety thing.
It's funny because I remember us having conversations in previous episodes and you bringing that up, and I was like, I don't relate to that. Now I get why.
Yeah.
There's an explanation for that. So the last thing for how to identify: prefers autonomy and often feels suffocated in close relationships and reluctant to rely on others.
Yes. When I say ever evolving, like I am in it. I'm learning to be more vulnerable. And the reason that this matters to me is because of any of what we're talking about resonates. It changes your understanding of why things are the way they are in your life, and even have been leading up to this moment when you go, where did that come from? So yes, absolutely. The whole entering perimenopause, I would get these migraines. I have little kids that need to rely on me. Can I tell you the shame that I felt being sick as a dog in bed, vomiting, headache, like because I needed help from their father. And he's an amazing but the way I was contextualizing, right? I was like, I need help. Even just saying it like that, I don't even know how to express to you. And I'm sick. I got some kids. They got a dad. We're all in the same house. We all love each other. But I'm sitting here going, I can't do it. And I am shameful that I need help to do it. This runs deep, y'all, for me anyway.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting how the shame starts to show up and you start to realize why things cause shame? Because I've looked at some people who felt shame around certain things and gone, why would anyone ever feel shame around that? Then I look at this and I go, because they're that and I'm not that. I'm like the opposite of that. So
yeah.
And they probably say the same to me, and I'm like, oh, I feel shame for that. And they're like, why? That's not something to feel shame for. Because we don't know what other people feel shame for unless we understand how they show up in the world. I love things that teach us how we show up in the world.
It's my favorite. So number 4, not just avoidant, but fearful avoidant or disorganized attachment style. This very often blends styles. The view here is going to be a negative, insecure view of self and a negative, insecure view of others. The traits that will be exhibited would be that they want closeness, but they fear it. And they set, but then don't maintain or respect somebody's boundaries. And then often from trauma or inconsistent caregiving, this is where that fearful portion comes in. So behaviors that somebody with this attachment style, it would be mixed signals. These people are really hard to read. I thought you said you wanted this, but then you're showing me that you don't. They may seek love, but then push it away. There's this push-pull dynamic. They want closeness, but they're afraid of it. I know that I've been there. People with this style, there's a shift between an anxious and avoidant behavior. Sometimes it's even in the same interaction. Have you ever found yourself going, wait, I'm confused because you just said this, but then you just in the same breath said the opposite, and I'm not really sure how to read this. How to identify? There's high emotional reactivity and mood swings. And now be careful with this, right? Because this also could be some other thing. And again, having a past bipolar diagnosis, bipolar doesn't exist in the same moment as the way I've experienced it. So let me be very clear on that. But emotional reactivity does, because your needs and wants aren't being met outside of that. So high emotional reactivity and possibly mood swings, definitely trust issues, especially difficulty regulating closeness with people. And it can appear chaotic or unpredictable in relationships.
It's really interesting when we look at this one. It is kind of a combination of what you and I both identify as. But I think, okay, so let's make Nicole Cocktail. Nicole Cocktail is mostly anxious attachment, 60%. Mm-hmm. And then maybe like 30% secure attachment at this point. Definitely not when I was younger. And then 10% of that fearful avoidant attachment. Mm-hmm. I can see how I dip into that sometimes and have those moments. I think we all do. That's nice that we explained that we are made up of all of them. And yet I definitely highly identify with the anxious preoccupied attachment for sure as my primary. And I love that you are avoiding dismissive attachment, because I feel like you and I bring a different perspective to when we're talking about things. And I think that's wonderful. Yeah.
Well, necessary.
We're both screwed up, but in different ways.
Aren't we all? I think that dipping into that secure attachment, you and I both, we welcome diverse perspectives, because we know who we are. And let's be clear, attachment styles don't define you as the person you are, right? It's just good information to have with you as you navigate life in conflict. So absolutely, we dip into the secure on several occasions. That diverse perspectives I really like, because I think that helps quite a bit in my ability to kind of stay in that attachment style. But absolutely, I love that you said the cocktail of Nicole, because yeah, I would be, if we're going, I'd say I'm at least 60% of the avoidant, and then moving into more secure as I learn and apply in situational awareness in my regular life. Because it's one thing to know this stuff, and it's another thing to go, this is how I can apply this to my life. And
Agreed.
Hopefully somebody can take something from this.
Just the awareness that these are different is so powerful. Just the awareness of, okay, I kind of fall into that category. It's just knowledge, it's just information. And I want to go into that category. So what is the difference between those two? Then I can approach a situation and go, hey, I want to show up in security, not in what my cells are telling me to show up in. I'm going to go against those cells, and I'm going to change that pattern, that agreement, that response from automatic and go, wait, I have an option. I think that's the thing that the knowledge gives you. When you are taught things when you're younger, you realize you have an option. I literally didn't even know that secure attachment was an option. Now I can go, oh, that's an option. Okay. And there are people that actually have that. Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you for that. Thank you for letting me know that that's an option, because I didn't know that. I think that makes all the difference.
I'm huge on the language aspect. The first step in being able to say, okay, I identify as this, and I would like to be able to show up more in that, is really the way that you're talking to yourself about it. I had to go through this. I went, I am an avoidant attachment. And that's it. That's why I am the way I am. But I'll tell you what, that does not give you carte blanche to be an asshole. You don't go, oh, well, I'm just going to find somebody who gets it. No, you still need to do the work. Yeah. Changing the language, right? I am someone who would like to show up as what this looks like. And so how does somebody who experiences that, how do they show up? That's how I want to start showing up. I experience the avoidant attachment, and I would like to show up as somebody who is a secure attachment. So how does somebody who has those traits show up in this moment? That's how I've seen those shifts started to move in my life.
I love that. I might even say I show up primarily in anxious attachment, and I'm working on transitioning to secure attachment.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what actually happens in the heat of the moment. When tension rises, emotions get activated and communication breaks down. This is where conflict patterns come into play. Because here's the truth. Most people don't fight about what they think they're fighting about.
Yeah.
I think we all know this. It's not really about the dishes or the text you didn't answer or being 5 minutes late. What we're actually fighting over is safety, connection, and unmet emotional needs. And the way we fight, how we react, shut down, explode, try to fix things too quickly, is often shaped by our attachment styles that we just discussed. So these styles, they sometimes collide. When they do, it can feel like you're speaking different emotional languages. I would even say different languages, but really it's different emotional languages. And you now understand a bit about the attachment styles that you may tend toward. But when you bring another person into the mix, you also might see these conflict patterns. And these specific patterns may show up in multiple relationships or maybe just one, because remember, it's a dynamic. You're creating it through different attachment styles communicating with each other. So there's all these different possibilities. And that creates a whole new area to understand. These conflict patterns, it's not about blame. I want to be really clear. It's about awareness.
Yes.
Same thing we were just talking about. Knowing your attachment style is not so you can go, oh, I'm horrible, I suck because I'm this. No, it's understanding I have a different option of a way to show up. Oh, understanding the conflict patterns is the same thing. It's about awareness. Awareness moving into knowledge. Awareness is what gives you the power to choose a different path. And those who may have a different path with those who may have conflict with you. So let's learn about these 7 common conflict patterns.
A whole class could have been designated to this in high school where somebody might start to
High school would have
understand.
been perfect.
And this first one that we're going to talk about is so high school. It's the pursuer distancer pattern. One partner seeks connection and the other withdraws. So the more you pursue, the more that they distance. It's this like back and forth. And you're like, whew, that sounds really tiresome. Again, we're all a little bit of all of this. The next one is criticism defensiveness loop. The description is one partner criticizes, the other partner gets defensive. That's kind of a natural thing. When we feel like we're being attacked, we're going to defend ourselves. And the dynamic looks like if a criticism triggers defensiveness, then the issues go unresolved and resentment builds. The next is stonewalling. Then that's emotional shutdown. I'm raising my hand here because go avoid an attachment style. So the description of this is that one or both partners shut down during conflict. Why does it happen? It's very often due to what we call emotional flooding, which is essentially overwhelm. Your heart is racing and we are not operating at 100% when that happens. When we are flooded, that's when we're supposed to take a break. But we often don't do that because we're in the middle of conflict. So we got to stick in there. But what does that do? That impact is it creates emotional distance, which then feels like abandonment. I'm craving something from somebody else, but because we both emotionally shut down, it feels like you are being abandoned in those feelings. And that is stonewalling. So a tip, and I practice this regularly in my relationship, is to take time outs. You take a time out, it's 20 minutes or more of something unrelated to what just happened. You take that time out, you agree to come back to the conversation because at that point you are not emotionally flooded.
The pursuer distancer that you were talking about is so interesting. That is me and my son because I crave deep connection and he's not a deep connector and he's a withdrawer. This is exactly what we do all the time. Oh, I got to change this pattern.
Interesting. I love that you said that though, because it really shows that it's about all relationships. It's not just about romantic relationships, that it can be familial. It can be a work relationship or a friendship too. So thank you for saying that. It's not just stuck in a specific dynamic.
Yeah, I'm a pursuer and he's a withdrawer for sure. And when that happens, I always think it's me. I take it personally. And now I'm going, oh, I don't need to take it personally. When you say pursuer, you often think emotional relationship. Yet that pursuing could be for deep connection or deep friendship, or this is my son. I'm pursuing him for a deeper mother-son relationship. Yet he's like, I don't want to go deep, mom. Multiple times we'll get in the car when it's like 10 o'clock. He's like, don't ask me the deep questions. Dude doesn't like to go deep. That's okay.
Yeah.
And I have to respect that. It's odd for me though. And again, this is one of the awarenesses that all of this does is it makes me aware that there are people that think differently. Even though I know that, it gives it more solidity for me. And when you solidify something like that for my personality, it's like, oh, okay, I can back down a little bit and be less aggressive.
That's where the awareness comes into play. I also wanted to make a point on the criticism defensiveness, because I can tell you that this is a replay in my life. It's not necessarily even actual criticism. It's also perceived criticism.
Yes.
That goes deep for me because there's this whole trigger of not feeling good enough that comes from my childhood. If anybody is expressing a distaste in something that I was a part of, and this has taken a lot of work and I'm moving through it, but it's perceived criticism. I don't hear my feelings were hurt. I was really sad about this. I hear you suck. You're not good enough. That was awful. So somebody would be like, but I wasn't criticizing you. And my whole body goes, you were attacking me. And then I become defensive, and that's when the emotional shutdown happens. And so recognizing these patterns in yourself help you move through it.
Yeah, Tim and I were just having this experience. He was being defensive, and I'm like, why are you getting defensive? I want to understand and I want to help you through this. I realized now that it's this, and it was perceived because I was like, I'm not criticizing you. The criticism I think he was feeling inside, something's happening outside of the relationship. The argument's never about what the argument is about.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll have an argument and I realize that it's actually about somebody else. This is actually about a situation that happened. It's not about us. You know, isn't that funny? We can fight with whoever's in front of us, even though we don't want to fight the person in front of us sometimes.
Yep.
So some of the other conflict patterns, one is passive aggressive pattern. Description: needs or frustrations are expressed indirectly. Silent treatment: sarcasm. Passive aggressive gets under my skin. Dynamic: one partner feels confused or manipulated, the other feels unheard. A lot of people who do sarcasm don't realize that's what they're doing. Core issues: fear of direct expression or conflict avoidance.
You know, I used to speak sarcasm as an entirely different language. And I used to joke, I wish there was a sarcasm font. Because how would
they know you're being sarcastic?
How do they know? And then in my relationship, Paul very much was like, you know what, that doesn't work for me. I don't understand what is happening here. Do you mean that? Do you not mean that? It's confusing. I really had to reel in my sarcasm. Now, every once in a while, something's hilarious and I got to get it out there.
Yeah.
But what I've learned is that it's the context of my sarcasm needs to be appropriate. I've reeled that in quite a bit, and I don't direct sarcasm toward my partner anymore. I do it in kind of general situations where I think that there's a universal understanding of humor, and the sarcasm could be picked up at that point. So I've really had to do a lot of work on my side, but that took a partner communicating to me that my sarcasm was not working in our relationship.
It's really interesting. Teasing, sarcasm, mocking, jokes. I think you could do a full episode on those because they can be avoidance. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. They can all be avoidant issues. Another conflict style: escalation spiral. So description: arguments intensify quickly. Volume: blame, insults increase. Trigger: poor emotional regulation or unresolved issues. There's Nicole. Impact: destroys safety, hard to repair without calming techniques. Science tie-in: the amygdala hijacking, emotional overriding logic. This is what I do. And I used to do insults. I better about not doing the insults, but I'm an escalation spiral person. And it's really difficult because a lot of people have such a strong reaction. We were talking about the broken record technique of repeating yourself, but repeating it calmly. I'm like, no, I just get louder and louder because I feel like I'm not being heard. That's what's happening.
Yes.
And that understanding the walking away. I have such a difficulty with, you're talking about flooding. When I do an escalation spiral and I'm flooded, I don't want to walk away because I need one of those rooms where I can go in and break things. What do they call those rooms? Like rage rooms?
A rage room. I went to one last summer. I did. I went to one last summer, and
how was it?
You know, it was anticlimactic because leading up to it, I had done the B vitamins and the ashwagandha and the stress shit and all that, and I was like, calm. Well, I understand where people need to get it out, but like I needed it right then and there. I had to fly to another island to get there. So yeah, but I see the need for them for sure. But that speaks to your anxious attachment style as well. You don't want to separate because you have a fear that that person will then never come back. So of course that would trigger you in some way. That makes a lot of sense.
For sure. And this goes to the poor emotional regulation, being able to regulate my emotions and go, okay, you're freaking out, so take a break. I'm not great at that. I'm learning how to do that, how to go, okay, I need one of your little things.
Pulse oximeter.
Seriously.
Recommended by the Gottmans. And I hold my finger up because that's what it is. Let me note something that I found interesting in my relationship. So I'm loud. I grew up in a loud house. I have a loud voice. That's one of the things about me. If I told you like one of my reoccurring dreams as a child, it was that I lost my voice. And because I'm loud, I've always considered that a power of mine, and that if I lost it, I would be lost and gone forever. I also project. I'm a tall woman, so I don't use volume as yelling. I'm very passionate, talk with my hands, and I'm passionate and I'm loud, and volume is very confusing to my partner because volume means upset, angry. And my volume does not necessarily mean upset or angry. If you put a pulse ox on me in those moments, it would not show you that I'm flooded. However, he, as a Black man from rural Mississippi, has had to his entire life compose himself so as to not seem angry, agitated, those things. These are patterns that he grew up in. So he very much, and this was confusing to me because I've had the ability to just be who I am for my entire life. And he has always had to contain himself. So what we recognized was that he thinks I'm flooded when I'm loud and I am not. And I think he's composed when he's flooded because he shows composure, but he is melting on the inside. Ooh. I was not able to tell that he was flooding because he was so composed, but on the inside, he was exploding. And I was composed on the inside, but he thought I was exploding because of my personality. So it took us a while to understand this about each other and to be like, I have to make a personal call here. And he had to do it. I'm flooded. I need to step away. And he didn't believe it. He was like, put it on. He would tell me, you put on your pulse ox. And that was my cue for me to go, he's flooded. And these are little details that you have to care enough about. I'm saying this because it takes a hell of a lot of work, people. We had to figure this out and we are much better for it. But I tell you, that pulse ox did something for us.
That's amazing. I think that would be good for me. And then if Tim tries to put it on my finger, I'll be like, oh, Houston, we have a problem. That's great advice. Thank you for that. That's the kind of things we miss if we're not paying attention. And these are so good. Yeah. Okay. So the next one is scorekeeping or tit for tat. Mm-hmm. Now, description, keeping mental tallies of wrongs or imbalances. Problem is it undermines generosity and trust. Yeah. Antidote, shift to a team mindset, focus on mutual needs. You're going to have to tell me if I'm doing this, because there's one of the things that happens in my interactions with some people where I do talk about the past in the sense that I see a pattern. Mm-hmm. I have had people say to me, well, you just always bring up the past. And I'm like, I really don't. I just see a pattern here and the pattern doesn't work for me. And I don't know if I'm scorekeeping or if I'm just seeing the same thing and I'm trying to help that person understand that there's a pattern there that doesn't work for me. So am I scorekeeping? Tell me the truth because I want to know.
No, I think scorekeeping or tit for tat is referring to things like, well, I did that for you 3 years ago, and all I'm asking for now is help. And it's giving a score. I did that major thing for you that one time, and all I'm asking for this time is this little thing. And that is tit for tat. That is scorekeeping. Patterning is a very different thing. It's a necessary awareness. It's also necessary to understand that the way we communicate our understanding of a pattern matters. It comes from our experience. So I experience this when not you. You do this every time. That is not the way we communicate. That's what that looks like. So that's my distinction in the scorekeeping tit for tat versus understanding a pattern. Now, that being said, for you to help somebody understand their pattern, they also have to hold accountability for themselves.
Well, I think you just nailed it because I don't do the I do the you. I think that might be the problem is I'm doing the you, not the I. And one of the things that I know that I do is Tim will say something to me. I'll say, give me an example. Because if I can take it into a real world example, then my brain can process it. I'll always go, I can't give you an example. And I'm like, well, that doesn't help me if you can't give me an actual example because I need to see how it plays out in the real world, not just here's your perception, or I need to understand what was happening in my brain in order for me to make a shift. But I think you cued it in. The problem is you do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not the fact that I'm talking about the past. It's the fact that I'm saying the you and not the I. Okay. Note to self. I feel.
Yeah, it is. And the Gottmans say, and when I'm referencing this, like when I say we did it. It's right here. There's a workbook in front of me. It's called The Art and Science of Love. It is a workshop for couples. When I say we've done it, we've done it. I'm not speaking in theory. This is stuff that I know. So when the Gottmans talk about we can't scorekeep in a relationship because it is like what you just said, Nicole. It's a team mindset. It's us against the problem. It's not me against you, because that creates relational conflict. And we're talking about very interpersonal relationships. Outside of intimate and romantic relationships, you can create this in friendships and work relationships. And you just have to shift that mindset, like exactly what you just said. It's not me against you. It's us against the thing, whatever the thing is. So when we speak, it's not you did this and you made me feel this way. It's my experience was this. When I saw this happening, when I looked at it this way, this was my experience. There was nothing about you in there at all. It was my experience inside of that situation. That is where we get rid of an attack on the other person. Number 7, the avoidant conflict style. And that's within the relationships. We're talking about 2 people now together. That is when both partners avoid conflict altogether. Oh, I don't like it. I don't want to deal with it. We're just going to ignore it. We're going to avoid it. We're going to pretend like nothing ever happened. In the short term, it feels peaceful. We hear often men go, I'll just keep the peace. It doesn't serve the long term. In the long term, that actually leads to emotional disconnection and unresolved tension. Unresolved tension leads to resentment and contempt. So where does this come from? Fear of confrontation, fear of rejection, fear. We don't bring things up because it seems easier in the moment, but I'm really afraid of what could happen if I do bring it up. If both people are avoidant, nothing gets fixed and it starts to eat at you. And it's really a trap. It's a trap of feeling false peace. If you can't be all of who you are you really at peace in that relationship? No, is the short answer there. So practice nonviolent communication. A practice tip. If you can identify your conflict style, do I fight? Do I run away? Do I freeze? Do I fawn? Oh, I'm sorry. I love you. If you are aware, it may help bring to light your ability to raise situational things. Awareness. I mean, we're just going to keep shoving the word awareness down your throat. As long as you're aware, something is possible. A shift can be had. We get to choose what fights we show up to. So we can avoid unnecessary conflict. Now, some of us sometimes feel like conflict is necessary. We got to have this fight right now. I got to win. Okay, we don't necessarily need to do this.
Stop talking to me.
All of you have heard this before, the pick your battles. Not every issue needs to be addressed. As I just said, you don't need to show up to every fight you're invited to. We can evaluate what's at stake here. Is this something that really needs to be hashed out? Is it a way that we can step aside and come outside of our regular styles and address this? And I think when we feel like we're about to be in a fight or a conflict, I guess it's very helpful to assume that the other person has a good intent. Is the other person trying to hurt me? Are they trying to get in a fight with me right now? More often than not, misunderstandings stem from miscommunication. Go back to our 4 agreements. Being impeccable with your word is agreement number 1. Most of the time, the person across from us is not trying to hurt us. It's a miscommunication. There's something that one or both of us are not understanding. And I love this quote. I don't know who says it, but it's never contribute to malice what you can contribute to incompetence. Because we assume in our self-protection mode, we are caveman at heart, we are trying to preserve. So if somebody's coming at me, I'm going to assume ill intent. And what we're saying is don't do that. We are all just humans. We don't always have the right words. Try to understand. And then, of course, proactive communication. If we can address tensions early before they boil over, that is going to be the very best thing, because then it's not the volcano erupting inside of us. It's not the rage. It's okay. Well, I didn't feel good about this. What do you think? And again, assume the good intent. And de-escalation tools are clutch here. So things like humor or redirecting the conversation or taking a break, these can all cool things down. There's so many de-escalation tools that can be used. Find one that works for you and play with it. We're all learning. We're all new at this in some way, shape, or form. And take some of this and play with it. Figure it out. Maybe do it with somebody you feel more on the secure attachment style with. See how things like this can play out.
This is amazing. I'm going to go right into my takeaways.
Go.
First of all, the one that you brought up last, number 7, when you talk about the avoidant conflict style. You know, when they say couples that never fight are in trouble, I think this is why they say that. But just knowing that all of these conflict patterns exist is huge for me. Like, I'm seeing so many things where I'm like, oh, that's how I was so-and-so, and that's how I'm so-and-so. Oh, I see that showing up, or not, maybe see like 2 of them showing up. I can literally go back. I mean, my brain needs examples. I can go back and be like, oh, I was having that conversation and that showed up and that showed up. It's just amazing to realize how these are, and then to realize that there are other things I can do instead. And just going deeper into my anxious attachment style that's huge. That's just huge. That's my takeaway.
I love that. That's really great insight. One of my takeaways is that there is an option to be different if you choose. I think that at a deeper level, life really doesn't have to be such a battle all of the time. There are safe people if you allow them to be, and it does take vulnerability. The ability to apply some of this knowledge to situational relationships. You're not going to fix the other person. That is not happening inside of this. The ability to know who you are and how you are versus how you would like to be, and that you can get there with practice and with the ability to associate yourself in a different light. I love that. I think this is such a necessary episode that really, really should be taught to younger folks.
Yeah, I have certain episodes that I listen to over and over again, and I think this will be one of them.
It's a good one. It is.
Especially because I can go, oh, well, that relates to what's happening right now, or I see that showing up. And as you do move from a specific sort of, not a box, you're not in the box, but you're being fluid about it. And yet you might see other things show up at different timings. So it might be right now, I'm like, oh, I relate to 3 of these, but then a year from now, when I've been working on this, I might go, oh, it's kind of transferred into some of the other parts of this. Being aware of it is so interesting. I love this stuff.
I have found in my effort, and you heard me at the top of this say that it's a lot of work to move into that secure, and I'm settling more into that. What I have noticed is that having this knowledge allows me to actually lay in the secure more, because maybe initially I go, we're in conflict, I need to protect myself. And yet practicing all of these tools allows me to take a step back and then recognize, oh, the person in front of me is not aware that they're really anxious right now. That allows me to step into empathy. And that immediately de-escalates my front. Oh, I was about ready to fight you, but now I took a step back and I could see that you were hurting and that you don't even know it yet. That then makes me want to help, and not in a fixed sort of way, but really de-escalate your tension so that we can get to the place that we need to be. Because ultimately, we all have some place to go in this interaction. Where are we trying to go and how are we trying to get there? So my ability to kind of step into that secure on occasion goes, oh, now I can bring more empathy to you, and I can help you co-regulate. And then hopefully I'm a little piece of your ability to see that secure can exist in this relationship moving forward, whatever that context is going to look like for us.
I wrote down, knowing the option leads to your practice, which leads to your habit. But if you don't know your option so clearly, like, I love this because my scientific brain, it opens the avenues of like, oh, I'm kind of here, but I want to be here. You can see the pathway. I want to fly the plane there, but I need to know where I'm going. That's where I'm going. Secure attachment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And this plays heavily into CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, because people often feel or think that their feelings come before their thoughts, when in fact we're aware. Awareness is the thought. How does that then make us feel? And how do we act out our feelings? Then that pattern is created based on that cycle. So what you just said is key, Nicole. Being aware then can put that into play. And then if I'm putting that in my thoughts into play, I'm feeling different. And then I'm acting different. And then based on my actions, what is that then getting me in my life? And then I get to change that pattern. And it's a beautiful thing. So that was excellent. Thank you for that point.
Love that.
Yeah.
All right. Questions.
This is a fun one because I know that you are traveling this week. You're out on the islands with me.
I am.
What is the best thing you've heard this week?
What is the best thing you've heard this week? See, now I'm torn because I actually listened to two things. Both of them are fantastic.
Say both things. Say both things.
Okay. I listened to our podcast on understanding perimenopause. We're halfway through it. My doctor gave it to me.
Yeah.
So we've listened to half of it, and there was so much good information in there. The other thing that we listened to, so I got into a new app, and it's called Insight Timer, similar to like a Calm app or something like that. And they offers classes. One of the classes is about emotions and regulating your emotions, because we just recently talked about that. And I was like, I need to work on that. So I listened to the intro, which was like 15 minutes. Again, it's just having the options and the understanding. I like understanding. What I don't like understanding of perimenopause is that
There's nothing to understand.
Yeah. It kind of made me realize how little we know, which is kind of a mess in that sense. But it also gave me some interesting insights into just how the hormones work. And I want to say her statistic was like only 8% of the women in the US that are of menopause age and older are on hormone replacement therapy.
Oh, God.
And that just kind of surprised me because of all the positive benefits of it.
Yeah.
One of the things that she said, and this was probably the best thing I heard now that we're talking about it, was she said, people will always say, what's the downfall of taking whatever the thing is? What's the downfall of taking it? And she goes, what people don't ask is, what's the downfall of not taking it?
That's an important question.
Yeah. And I've been dealing with that a lot lately in my world. I was like, that is legit. What's the downfall of not doing whatever it is?
Yeah.
And I think that applies to all of life.
Oh my gosh. I was just going to say it applies to exactly what our episode was about today.
Good stuff. Yeah. I've been listening to too many good things. When I'm on vacation, I'm all about like listening to things.
Love it.
Okay. You ready for your question?
Yeah.
What's the weirdest date you've ever been on?
Okay, I'm sure that there have been plenty, but the first one that comes to mind is, gosh, I was so young. I think I was in like my very early 20s, and I was online dating, and has online dating been around for 20 plus years? God.
Right. Yes.
Okay, so I went out on a date. I had to drive like 45 minutes. Online dating, he put us together. So he probably had to drive too. So I'm sitting there and we're talking. I think he was from somewhere in South America. I don't remember what country. There was maybe a small accent. I like dark skin, dark hair, dark eyes. So I was like, ooh. I'm sitting there, and very quickly it became evident that gender norms and gender roles were absolutely necessary in this man's world. And he said something about his woman will not work and will not this. And he just went like super machismo. And I'm sitting across from him and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, dude. Like, and so I had an option at that point in time. I could have been like, I gotta go. But the cynical bitch inside of me turned on. And I was like, I got some questions.
You gotta learn a lesson here.
And I wasn't direct. I was very, again, the cynical bitch, the sarcasm came out so hard. But because he wasn't from the US, he wasn't understanding my sarcasm, which was directly related to how ridiculous I found his comments to be. Now, I was not well-traveled. I just knew my little life in Southern California. So the sarcasm met with his very like sincere, and he probably thought he was being nice. I was just like, oh, this is not, it was a very strange thing. And I stuck it out the whole time. We sat, I don't think I ate, but it was a whole 2 some hours where we sat there. And then he started to get aggressive. And then I was like, oh yeah. And it went poorly, quickly. And that was 20 plus years ago. I still remember this. So that was the first thing that came to mind.
Oh, the machismo.
Didn't work for me in the moment.
Yeah. It's not going to happen.
No. Yeah, I think that one goes down as the worst. And at this point, I don't remember details. I just remember walking away feeling like, what did I get myself into here? I gotta sift through these guys better. Yeah.
You're like, I need an intake form.
Yes. I wish. Now, if I ever had to start dating now, I've joked about that with my friends. I'd be like, yeah, you're going to need to fill this out. I'm going to need to know your therapist's name, how long you've been working there, what your core issues are, how you approach them. Yeah.
That's awesome.
We've grown quite a bit.
You think? Well, Jen and I want you to just take one thing from today's episode and bring it into your life. Maybe it's pausing to reflect on your patterns. Maybe it's listening with a little more understanding, or maybe it's taking a moment to review these conflict patterns or attachment styles to become aware of how you may be able to show up differently. Small shifts can lead to powerful change.
Yes.
If you found this episode valuable, share it with someone you care about. Your support helps the show reach more people who are ready to transform their lives. And don't forget to hit subscribe. There's so much more to explore, and we're just getting started. Next week, we will use what we've learned so far about conflict to look at some new approaches and some new information to bring your ability to handle conflict to the next level.
Yay!
Until next time, remember, awareness without action is nothing. You must act on your knowledge always.
Do it.
Do it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Write your